With that, we welcome in NFL on CBS analyst Charles Davis. Charles, when you look at both teams' records, this matchup could not be more lopsided. The Eagles undefeated, while the Texans only have one win. That said, you and I both know Thursday night games this year have been unpredictable, to say the least. Philly is seeking its first 8-0 start in franchise history. How do they avoid getting tripped up?
Katie, I think when you talk about Thursday night games being unpredictable, I think you're being very kind. They've been bad. All right, let's just be honest about it. They haven't been that great. And that would play in Houston's favor if that happened again, if that Thursday night thing happened and it kind of became a little bit of a mosh pit. But let's go ahead and start with Philadelphia, because as the undefeated team, as the team with the target, as a team being circled, they just have to down focus in this game. You know, I think we all have heard the trite expression from just about every team. All we want to be is 1-0 at the end of each game. And that's what the Eagles need to be. Trite, boring, good. That works for them. Because if they overlook Houston, that will put them in jeopardy. If they don't, they're the more talented team, and they will get to 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. The second part is play to your strength if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. You run the football 51% of the time. The Houston Texans, with running backs after contact, they've given up the 3 highest gained games of the year. Derrick Henry had 182 yards after contact in his game. Khalil Herbert from Chicago, 148. Jonathan Taylor, also 148 from Indianapolis. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Miles Sanders is 8th in that category in running backs. Jalen Hurts is 4th in that category in quarterbacks. If you run it 51% of the time, make that 60 in this ball game until Houston stops you.
Just run the ball. All right, well, given what you just said, the Eagles have much more to play for than the Texans. Oh, but wouldn't it be sweet to play spoiler? How can Houston pull out this upset?
Katie, I'm an old guy, okay? So you're going to have to hang with me on this one. But back in my day in college, there was a group called Morris Day and the Time, and they sang a song called Wild and Loose. And that's how Houston needs to be in this ball game. Let's go back to 2021, late in the season, Los Angeles Chargers. If they win the game, they pretty much lock down a playoff spot in Houston. Houston jumped on them, essentially cost the Chargers a spot because they had to go play the Raiders the next week for that spot and lost that game in overtime. That team for Houston had 10 starters missing due to COVID. They had 11 practice squad players that got elevated in that game. They signed a kicker that week. They ended up putting up 437 yards, scored on 6 of 9 possessions, had 3 takeaways on defense, scored once on defense. And quarterback Davis Mills, who everyone's talking about, hey, they might need a quarterback next year. He's 21 of 27, 254, 2 touchdowns in that game, 0 interceptions. Oof. They need that Davis Mills. They need that kind of a game. Wild and loose. That's how it has to be for Houston. And the last part, if all else fails, the World Series is going on, Houston and Philadelphia. If you're the Texans, can you get Altuve? Can you get Bregman? Can you get Alvarez? Can they come over and go long ball for you? Can you get that done? Because if all else fails there, go to the Astros and go get their long ball hitters and see if something can work that way. That's what I've got for the Houston Texans in this game.
Yeah, you know, it's a big week for both Houston and Philly fans. I'd say it's getting a little bit better for Philly. But before we let you go, we got to get a pick, Charles. Who wins on Thursday night?
Well, look, everyone knows it, and you mentioned it. It's been unpredictable on Thursday night. You can't really say one team and blah, 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 blah. I do think in this case, though, Philadelphia finds a way. All right. On Monday night, I thought Cincinnati would go in and take care of business with Cleveland and got totally turned around on that one. Cleveland jumped all over them. I don't know if Houston has enough for Philadelphia as they continue on their merry way. Because here's one thing that Philly has going in their favor. They're hearing a lot of chatter. You're the only undefeated team. But we think Buffalo's better than you are, even with 1 loss. And that might be enough motivation for them to keep the undefeated streak going. I like Philly going to 8-0. I like Philly continuing to march and writing one of the best stories of the NFL season so far in this ball game.
Charles, you and me both on Monday night. Joe Burrow owes me some money. Thank you, as always, for your time. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Now for the gambling perspective, let's go ahead and look at where the money is on each team. Well, 67%, of course, they're on the Eagles, only 33% on the Texans. Now time to welcome in a man of many talents and many suit jackets. You can tell I wore a sparkly jacket for you today. It's the czar of the playbook, Emory Hunt. Emory, the Eagles are -800 favorites against the Texans, the second juiciest moneyline odds this year, and they're -14 against the spread, a number they have covered 3 times this season. However, Davis Mill, he's 3-0 in his career as a double-digit dog. Can Houston keep this within 2 touchdowns?
Absolutely not, man. Ladies points with Philly on the point spread, the money line, the penny line, the clothing line, all that stuff. Philly's going to win this ball game handsomely. And the reason why, what travels well, run game and defense. What the Eagles do well, run the ball, play good defense. Those 2 things to me yield this to being a blowout fashion. We're going to get another bad game, but bad in sense of it's not even going to be close or competitive. Yeah, they'll be out there for 4 quarters because they're obligated to be. That's the rules of the game. But they have no shot against Philadelphia.
No shot. And I do like also Philadelphia in the first half. They're -7.5 on that one. They are the best first half team in the NFL. But Emory, there is a reason why the Eagles are undefeated. Their roster is an embarrassment of riches. From Jalen Hurts to Darius Slay, they're absolutely stacked. It's hard to choose, but I'm going to make you do it anyway. A top Eagles player prop, go.
Very hard to choose when you're expecting a blowout because a lot of people could eat, but also they could start pulling some guys if they get this thing to get out of hand very quickly and early like we saw them do last week against Pittsburgh. But I will say, because we just saw Derrick Henry run all through Houston like a river going through it, I look at Miles Sanders' total numbers here. I'm big on total because you never know with running backs. They be a little bit fickle sometimes. So I'm going to go over 92.5 total yards because they can't run the ball, or they can't stop the run. Houston can't. And we know the Eagles can run the football rather well. So I think his total number would be great, but we'll see a lot of backs start to get a lot of yards on the ground. But I like the total for Miles Sanders.
I love that. How about A.J. Brown's reception prop? It's only at 4.5. He's had at least 5 receptions in all but 1 game this season. And you talk about disrespectful props. I know it's your favorite thing. Brown did call out Roger Goodell this week for the random drug testing after his dynamite game versus the Steelers. It's safe to say that he feels disrespected. So I don't know, you might want to fire on that one as well. Now on for Houston props. The only weakness that we've seen in this Eagles team has been against the run. The last time they held a team under 100 rush yards on the ground, that was the Jags in week 4. It feels like Dameon Pierce might be Houston's Obi-Wan Kenobi, or maybe their only hope. Are you targeting him for Thursday?
Absolutely, I'm targeting him. The big reason why, pun intended, Jordan Davis is going to be out this ball game. That's their big, massive rookie nose tackle that plays an integral part to how well they stop the run. So without him being right there in the middle, now granted, you're going from a star to a bunch of other stars. So they got good players that are in reserve, but he's a big part of their run defense. I look for Dameon Pierce to go over 63.5 yards rushing. That's the lone bright spot for Houston. I was going to go with the Davis Mills throwing an interception prop, but last week that was plus money. This week is like juice to -6 million. You can stay away from that. They expect him to throw a pick, but take this rushing number to go over for Dameon Pierce.
Oh, I love a quarterback pick prop, but yeah, too much juice on that. Emory, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Let's go ahead and recap those picks. Well, he says take the Eagles. There's no other way around that. You got to take the Eagles. Player prop, he likes Sanders over 92.5 total yards. And for Houston, he's taking Pierce over 63.5 rush yards.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.